What's up, brother?
What's up, brother?
How you doing?
Good.
Praise God. Praise
It's all
God.
good. Well, we're here. Let's address everybody tonight. All of you watching, we want to thank you first for supporting us. Everybody who prayed, everybody who sent us those positive texts, we want to thank you because aside from believing that God is the main driving force to this whole project and this whole program, He's using all of you to support us and by listening and by tuning in. Right, Pastor?
Amen. I was blessed when the bishop and his wife, our pastors, reached out to us, and they gave us their blessing.
Oh yeah.
And that was like a mark in what God is doing through this ministry and through the vision that God gave us. So when I received that, that message, I felt just the blessing, just really happy that we were that the bishop gave us their blessing. And so we're here today. We're opening up, and we're really just excited. Like you said, all the emails and all the messages that we receive really encourages us to move forward in what we want to do. And so we're here to bless you. We're here to just be used by God, and moving forward. Pastor.
That's it. I mean, we were talking about moving forward earlier.
Right.
And we were talking about the struggles.
Yes.
Of moving forward. We all want to move forward.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because that's in our human DNA.
Right.
To progress.
Right.
But there's the other aspect that we just don't want to suffer on our way there.
Come on. All right.
But, the thing about suffering and the thing about struggle, it does more than just make us stronger.
Okay.
It opens our eyes. It gives us that perspective.
Right.
It gives us wisdom.
Right.
It helps us to then help others.
Right.
And that's what this is all about.
Okay.
Right? That we can just basically put it out there and just drop the knowledge that God has given us.
Right. Right.
And share it.
Right.
And then talk about our own personal struggles as we've moved on and had to climb our mountains and go back down to the valley,
Well, that's a part of it. The part of the moving forward is sometimes it's on the mountaintop and sometimes on the in the valley side. And so when we're talking about moving forward, first of all, you have to have a reason. There's got to be something in front of you to move forward, something that God has given you, something that pushes you. A destiny. Sometimes the reason why I believe that we get stuck or we don't move forward is because we're looking around where we are. When we look around where we are, it discourages us to move forward. And so there's things at the moment, and when it's just in that time frame or in that time in which when we look around all the negativity. When we look around at anything that's happening in our lives, that does not help us move forward. But sometimes we need that push. I think that when it comes to both of us, when we were speaking, I needed that push, and I felt that I needed someone to push me.
Right.
Bible says that when you have two. Right. Or three in accord, anything we ask. And sometimes we need that. I would say all the time, we need that person that would push us forward. Because sometimes we have these dreams, we have these visions, we have these ideas that we want to move forward. But sometimes we definitely need, we think to ourselves, oh, that's just a dream. Yeah. That's just something that's not going to happen. But when you combine and you put dreams together with someone else, and you put those dreams and you have that other person to push you forward. I mean, we've been talking back and forth, and we've been saying, the excitement has been building, even within ourselves.
Yeah.
And we're saying, we're kind of pushing ourselves. And I think that being able to move forward, we need other people to move us forward. Yes. Because sometimes when we look at ourselves, though we want to move forward, we just don't have the strength to move forward. And you have that extra person. Sometimes you're excited about a vision.
Oh, yes.
You're moving forward and you're saying to yourself, I'm so excited about this vision. But at the same time, you say, well, next day you're down in the valley.
Yes.
But when you move in a vision with other people,
right,
you know, I have you in moving forward in this vision. You encourage me to say, you know what? I know you're feeling down today.
Right.
And I know you're not feeling well today, but you know what? You know, we could do this thing, you know. I'm here
sure.
by your side.
Yeah. I mean, you know me.
Right.
You know, one of my biggest, presentations on teaching is always on how to deal with the mind that is filled with fear.
Right.
And so
Come
many
on.
people try so many things to drive their fears away.
Right.
But through the course of everything that I've been through,
Right.
Everything that both of us have been through
Right.
in life,
Right.
I have found fear to be a really good teacher.
Okay. All right.
A lot of people would say, well, you can't do that.
Okay.
But that's if you live in conformity to mainstream thinking.
Okay.
But the thing about it is that, for instance, Job himself said, that which I feared the most has come. You know?
Yes.
And the thing about it is he had to face all those things that were now not just at his doorstep, if not, they worked his way into his house.
Right. Yes.
On his body.
Right.
Into his mind.
Right.
Into his marriage.
Wow.
Into his relationships with his friends.
Right.
All these things just basically which we as humans fear that they would happen to us. But yet, here's the enlightening thing.
Okay.
That when you're going through stuff like that, you feel this call inside of you that you know, I have to still yet go forward.
Come on. Yes.
And so that becomes the biggest challenge because you're like, I know I'm supposed to move forward.
Right.
I may not have direction,
Right.
but if I can get my mental feet moving and if I can start grabbing a hold of something
Right.
that mentally seems tangible,
Right.
so that therefore I can start building upon that. It's interesting because, you know, how God started to give Job this enlightenment. And one of the things about that enlightenment that many people don't want, and that's to deal with the I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know
Yes.
what's coming.
Right.
I don't know what's ahead of me.
Right.
I don't know how this is going to end.
Right.
I don't know where it began.
Right.
I don't know what I'm going to experience in the middle.
Right.
And so we try to put all these pieces together. And then the bigger challenge is God is silent for a season.
Come on.
He doesn't say anything.
Be all right.
You know,
Right.
And we find ourselves in a company of people that start to tell us, oh, you know, this is happening to you because of this. And, you know, you're trying to move forward
Right.
and not realize that sometimes you have to be careful because there are people that will, out of good intention, try to move you forward with the right words,
Right.
but they'll restrict you and they'll keep you there.
Okay.
But the powerful thing about this is God saw the day that was coming.
Right.
He did prepare you for it, even though you say this came out of nowhere, I wasn't ready.
Right.
You were ready, not how you think you were ready, but you're ready. And so that's why when, when you start to see a lot of historical figures
Right.
that did a lot of incredible things, not just through biblical history, if not also through human history,
Right.
that you start to see that they always face the I don't know. And so here we are tonight, and we're talking to everybody. And, we didn't know that this was going to basically come to this level like this.
Right. Right.
But it's like you said, if you have somebody there to push you,
Right.
not just with projects like this, but like marriage.
Right.
You start off in marriage, you don't know what's coming.
Right.
But you know if you have that person next to you,
That's it.
we're moving forward.
That's it.
Right?
That's right. You know, one of the things that I got from you, Pastor, is moving forward. So it's forward,
Right.
fear,
Right.
but it's also a fuel.
Right. Oh, it's good.
So
I'll take that.
we move forward,
Right.
even though we have fear,
Right.
but we use that fear as a fuel.
There you go.
And so when we face that fear, and I think that every human being, everyone goes through that fear.
Oh, absolutely.
We have to face our fears. One of the things I was talking at work was one of my phobias is I can't see a whale. I know this is just I just can't see a whale. Due to the fact that it's so immense, it's so large.
Right.
And I think that when we look at a dream, we can say that's our whale.
Right.
That is it's so much bigger than us.
Right.
And I think that that's the challenge because it's easy to confront something that's small.
Right.
Because we say we have our own strength and we can do it on our own, our own strength.
Sure.
But when God challenges you, and when I'm saying challenge you, there are people that challenge you as well. You challenged me through this vision, and so you told me you got to confront this whale.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to confront that fear. I mean, this afternoon we were talking on the phone, and you were just encouraging me, and you were putting faith into me.
Right.
So you told me use your moving forward through faith.
Right.
Use your fear as your fuel.
Right.
And being able to say, look at this whale, confront this whale.
Right.
Because the challenge is it's bigger than you.
Oh, yes.
That's the challenge. The challenge is saying, this is so much bigger than me. But that's the challenges that God wants us to face, or something bigger, because though it's bigger than us, it's not bigger than Him.
That's right. I took a cruise, right, just not too long ago.
Okay.
And while everybody's sleeping, and of course you want to sleep in.
Right.
I'm one of those people that I have a hard time sleeping in. So, while everybody's just sleeping from.
I don't have that problem, Pastor. I love my naps.
Everybody's sleeping in
Right.
because they basically just, hit the buffet bar like 6 and 8 times. But,
I hear you.
I get up.
Right.
And I'm up like at 5:30, and
Okay.
I go on the deck.
Okay.
On the big top deck.
Come on.
And I'm looking out into the ocean.
Oh.
And I was overwhelmed by seeing all that water and the depth of that water.
Wow.
But here's what gets me. That when we see things that basically overwhelm us,
Right.
what gets us to basically look at it from a humble perspective, okay, when God puts something in you to do,
Come on.
okay,
Yeah.
the boat was still moving.
Wow. Still moving forward.
Although there was a sense of being overwhelmed, there's still a movement taking place.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So, sometimes we get overwhelmed by pain and sorrow,
Right.
right?
Yes.
But the boat is still moving. Your life is still moving.
Right.
Month after month, day
Right.
after day.
Right.
It's still moving.
Right.
You're still moving.
Right.
We may have to move into places of healing, okay?
Yes.
Restoration.
Yes.
But we're still moving.
Wow.
And so when I saw all that water, and I saw the grandness of that water, there's an old poem, or not a poem, a prayer, excuse me, by these fishermen. And they pray this prayer, and they say, "Oh Lord, have mercy on me,
Right.
because I'm in your waters.
Wow. That's good.
And my boat is so small."
That's good.
Okay.
That's
So
good, Pastor.
the thing is that didn't stop the fishermen from going out.
Okay.
And sometimes what happens is that we expect God to downsize what He's going to basically put us in,
Right.
or show us.
Right.
And we want Him to downsize it. We want marriage to be downsized, that
Right.
we can figure out our partners in such a way
Right. Right.
that we already know everything about them.
Right, right.
But we forget they're going through different age changes, they're going through life changes, and you're not going to have all that knowledge all together.
Right.
And so we want to just downsize everything. We want to downsize the business because we get overwhelmed.
Right.
Imagine if, I can't mention his name, but if one of the greatest pioneers in the software business,
Right.
imagine if he tried to downsize that thing.
Right.
Would he be, one of the richest men in the world right now?
Exactly.
And so what happens is how God provokes you, to basically just move out. Abraham looking across that wilderness,
Yes.
and, all of a sudden he's going out into a place where there's hardly anybody.
Yes.
When Peter walking on water,
Right.
He saw him doing it, he saw Jesus doing it, but then he was like, oh, I can do that too.
Right. Right.
But, getting back to the whole thing, fear turning into fuel.
Right.
Sometimes you have to do things afraid.
Come on.
You have to do things afraid.
Yes.
You have to do, because if you don't, what ends up happening is you'll always be stuck on the shore. You'll have all the equipment, you'll have the boat, you'll have the business, you'll
nets.
have the ministry,
Right.
you'll have the crew,
Right.
you'll have the nets,
Right.
you'll have it all, you'll have the experience.
Right.
But if you're not willing to basically go out into deeper waters so that you could say, yeah, okay, I may have failed a few times,
Right.
but at least I got off the shore.
Wow, that's true. You know, one of the things you said, Pastor, was understand that they're God's waters.
Right.
You know, that places a point of faith, knowing that what you said, my boat is small.
Yes.
You know, my ideas are small.
Right.
But understand that God is going to drive that little idea
Yes.
through big waters.
That's right.
And being able to understand that God is the one that is taking us to the places that He wants to take us. And I love what you said. You said, understand that it's His waters, and that helps us with fear.
Oh yes.
Because it takes away the understanding that I can't. You know, it's not my waters. It's not me driving. It's God driving. And so when you put the factor of that it's God's waters, that it's God's place where He's taking your boat.
Right.
You understand and say, God, this is truly faith. And like faith, you know, when you have faith, there's fear.
Right.
You're afraid because you feel you have no control over the particular idea. You're on this boat.
Yes.
And you really, you know, you're the mercies of the waters.
Yes.
But when you understand that, you know, God is the owner of the waters. You know, during the storm, the disciples.
Oh.
You know, He made them understand. You know, it's amazing. They were moving about
Right.
in the storm.
Right.
And I love what Scripture says. They were not afraid because they were too busy.
Right.
You know, they were just too busy trying to get the water out. There was a big storm. There were
Right.
things happening. You know, when we get too busy, sometimes, you know, busyness makes us not see.
Okay.
You know, because we don't have time to fear.
Oh, that's good.
You know, because we're just moving around. We just, you know, in life, it's just busy. You're getting up for work.
Right.
You come back. You're taking care of the kids. You're doing so many things that you don't have time to even focus on fear. But the Bible says that when He calmed the storm, then they felt fear.
Isn't that something?
Isn't that strange?
That is crazy.
I mean, not during the storm.
No. I mean, you know, you're saying this, and what's coming to my mind is like, you know, getting pictures in my head
Right.
of seeing families,
Okay.
you know, that the storm has come inside
Oh, come on.
the home.
Yes.
And it's like when you see the fishermen
Right.
with their buckets trying to get the water out.
Right.
They're doing everything they can.
Right.
Because they don't want it to basically either capsize or sink.
Right.
And the busyness of life,
Right.
okay, will sometimes act like that because we're trying to do what we're trying to do. We work for a living,
Right.
okay? We take the kids out.
Right.
We do our parenting.
Right.
We do the marriage thing.
Right.
You know, we do all of those things.
Right.
You know, unconsciously, what are we trying to do? We're keeping the boat afloat.
That's it. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we're keeping the boat afloat. And I think that, you know, what takes place is that when we don't find ourselves in that type of healthy busyness,
I like that. Healthy busyness.
right,
Right.
that's when the fear sets in. And that's when basically we're like, we start to take notice. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a parent.
Right.
I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a spouse.
Right.
I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing as an employee.
Right.
You know, and in my personal experiences of life, that's one of the most terrifying things when you have so much time on your hands.
Right.
That all of a sudden now you learned how to manage life and time with the little bit that you had. Now all of a sudden you have all this time.
Right.
And now you programmed yourself to only manage certain things with what the little that you have.
Okay.
And now you have all of this. And now all of a sudden you're like, how do I manage all this time? What do I do? And then you start dealing with different types of storms, mental storms.
Yes.
Because now you find yourself in waters you've never found yourself in.
Come on.
And so now you start to realize life can be so overwhelming to the point where you say, wow, you know, if we compare it to bodies of water,
Come on.
like we're real good in lake scenarios.
Right.
But when we find ourselves out in the seas,
It's a different boat.
That's a whole different boat. Right?
Yes. Wow. That's something. So, you know, being able to find yourself in these deep waters,
Right.
it takes you to recognize, you know, man, this is new to me.
Right.
You know, new waters. It could be exciting.
Oh, yeah.
You kind of get excited. I mean, when we started the program, we were so excited, but
Sure.
but at the same time, we started thinking, well, these are new waters for us.
Right.
And we're threading salt, very lightly, treading lightly, because it's new to us.
Yeah, because you pray for things.
Right.
You ask for things.
Okay.
And then you pump up your head, you pump up your soul with listening to so many messages, and reading so many books about, getting to that place, and you start to build in your mind what you think that place is like.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, you feel so humbled because now you're in a new place.
Right.
You're dealing with new giants.
Right.
You're like, I've never fought something like this before.
Right.
God help me to manage this.
Right.
And that's a good place to be. Because if it turns you into the direction to ask God for his help,
Right.
that's a good thing.
Right.
If we allow ourselves then to basically put ourselves back into waters that we think we can manage without him, well, that's when we find ourselves that we're going to start seeing our spiritual oars breaking, and then we're going to start to realize, no, this isn't a good place for me.
That's good. That's good because when God moves us forward, is because he said you already have learned what you need to learn in this area of your life and at this level.
That's right.
And we love to stay there. I mean, come on, we're able to control outcome.
Oh yeah.
Because if you do something every day, you already know what the result is going to be.
Exactly.
But when you're moving forward, you then begin to say, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. That's kind of scary.
Oh man, that's good.
I'm moving. God is moving me to new waters here. He's moving me forward. I was hearing Pastor today because when we move forward, God wants us to mature. That's the idea.
Yes.
The idea is that you're mature in this particular area.
Yes.
But there's still something in you that I need to still mature, and there's an area that I still need to work with.
Right.
But it's not going to work at this level.
No.
I need to bring you at a level where you're, where you're unfamiliar.
Right.
Because there you begin to trust.
Yes.
And when you begin to trust, you begin to cry out to God.
Oh yeah.
And when you begin to cry out to God, then you're saying, God, I knew what it was like back then. When I was here at the little beach, it was nice.
Right.
I was, snorkeling. I was doing my little thing. But now you're asking me to scuba dive. And so it's not so comfortable because, there are sharks in these waters.
Yes.
And there are different things that can harm me in these waters.
Oh yeah.
So then we begin to, trust more in God, because I like what he said. Maturity is being, how did he put it? He said, maturity is being soft in an area that you were hard.
Wow.
And being hard in an area where you were soft. Where God wants you to be strong in a particular area.
Right.
He can't do it at the level that you're at now.
That's right.
He can't do it in the little waters that you are now.
Right.
In order to mature you, he's got to take you to a different level, where he now takes you and he says, I'm working something different in you.
Right.
And in order for me to work in something different, you have to be at a different place.
Oh, man. That's so rich, because what's coming to mind is right before Jacob's wrestling.
Okay.
And those of you at home, you can check it out, or go online, Google it up. But
Professor Google.
Professor Google. And right before, he gets into his wrestling match.
Right.
Everybody else that was with him had crossed a body of water.
Wow.
And they were all moving forward.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Now, it's incredible because the one that was basically going to be used to then lead them even more forward,
right,
he has to deal with something before he crosses those waters.
Oh, my God. That's good, Pastor.
Because sometimes, we see people, advancing in life.
Right.
Or we see some people that maybe they, in their area of marriage or family or business, they have advanced.
Right.
And we look at them and, I'm not going to lie. The flesh just wants to envy them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
It's like, what do I got to do to get that?
Right.
Right? But it's amazing how God will allow that to happen. He will allow people to advance because, in all fairness, everybody has to advance.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Everybody has to advance.
Sure.
And so, the group advances, they cross.
Right.
He has to stay back and he has to deal with something before he crosses those waters.
That's so good. Yes.
Because all of a sudden, he's wrestling with something. And what's he wrestling with? The actual fear of coming to terms with who he really was.
That's a big one.
And that's a big one.
Yes.
Because coming to terms and actually taking a good gander in the mirror.
Right.
And coming to terms and saying, this is who I am.
Right.
These are my issues.
Right.
These are my struggles.
Right.
I mean, because where he thought he was not going to pass the test, because if you remember in the earlier chapters, he took that test in his father's tent.
Right.
And God asked him through his father, who are you? And he failed the test there.
Right.
And so now he has to go through this process.
Right.
Because God was going to always bring him to cross that river to begin with.
Right.
At the end of it all. But he has to take that test again, which is to bring him to that place, as you said, maturity.
Right.
So that he can basically come to terms, yes, there's the Jacob in me. Okay.
Wow.
There's a con artist. I mean, there's a liar.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
There's a conniver.
Right.
There's this person
Right.
that doesn't play by the rules.
Right.
Just so that he can get what he can get.
Right.
Okay. But notice that when he came to terms with that, God says, you passed.
Wow.
You passed the test.
Right.
When he comes to terms with that.
Right.
And not only does he pass, he says, now I'm going to show you an aspect about yourself that you don't know before you cross these waters, because that's the other thing. You need to know also the power side of yourself. You need to know the side of yourself that has this audience with this great God.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
And sometimes we're just listening too much to the voice of the other guy inside of us.
Right.
Rather than listening to the voice that basically is telling us, you are not who you think you are. There is something much more greater to you than this.
Wow.
And just because it looks like you're failing,
Right.
that doesn't take away from the greatness of what God has deposited in you.
Wow.
So now we see him move forward, and the rest,
That it's amazing that at that point, one of the things that I really liked was that you said, we look at both sides of who we are.
Oh yeah.
The being able to confront the weak side.
Yes.
Of who we are. We cannot move forward without recognizing that.
That's right.
But at the same time, God is so loving that he says, I know you're weak here, but I also want you to show you your strength. I love that. And at the same time, in your thoughts, when you're just about to cross those waters, what really gets you is the weak side. You're constantly thinking that weak side. How am I going to cross? Not only that, how am I going to cross other people? How are other people even going to follow me? Because I'm now confronting myself with the weak side that I know that I have. But now, at that point where God is so loving, and when I say that, God uses other people, and to tell you, you have this weak side, but at the same time, look at the strong side. And the scripture is so nice because it says that I make myself strong in the weak areas. And so that weak side, though it may seem weak, it's the area that makes you strong because it makes you dependent.
Oh.
And dependence, makes you humble. Because if you have all areas that are strong, eventually pride walks in the door. Every person has that confrontation of weak side and strong side. Now the idea is, what are you going to do when you recognize that? Are you going to still stay there? Are you going to say, well, I have weak side and this is it, man. I really can't move forward. And you know what? Every time you're thinking about, because that's how our mind thinks, and that's how our inner voice is going to tell us. It's going to tell us, you know what? You can't move forward Because that weak side is going to be the constant reminder of you can't move forward. And even if you try to take that step, you got to remember that weak side. But at the same time, what we have to understand is the weak side is there to make us dependent. Because when we become dependent, we become aware that as we're moving forward, we have to be careful. Because our strong side can tell us, we want to move forward. That strong side that you wake, you had that nice breakfast in the morning. Your mind is ready to go, and you're saying to yourself, you know what? Today I feel strong. Today I feel like I can conquer the world. Today I feel that, I'm moving forward in that vision.
Right.
And then that weak side comes and knocks at your mind and says, well, no, you're not. But when we take that weak side and say, I'm going to take that weak side and say, I'm going to depend on God. I'm going to depend on someone that God has placed by my side. I'm going to depend on my friends. I'm going to depend on the wife that God has given me. I'm going to depend on someone that God has placed in my life. So when that weak side comes a knocking, because it will come a knocking.
Oh, yeah.
That we can, that one person says, listen, I know you're afraid, because that weak side brings the fear.
Right.
But yet that weak side also brings opening to others to help you to move forward.
Okay.
And so being able to say, you know what, I recognize this, like you said, but after I recognize this, what I'm weak at, and after I understand that I'm dependent on God, and after I understand that God is telling me, here's your strong side and what you could do, now you're ready to move forward and lead other people forward into those waters,
What comes to mind this past weekend in talking to the men of the church.
Yes.
I was talking to them about the benefits of the thorn in your flesh.
Okay.
Because what happens is that when we're not at that place, and it's not a bad thing, it's not saying nothing negative, because I don't want anybody watching this to say, oh, he said this and this is what I feel like.
Right.
But the thing about it is that when we are afraid of that thorn in our flesh, and what I mean by that, so everybody watching tonight, you're probably saying, what does he mean by that? The thorn in our flesh is just basically, a lot of people interpret it in different facets.
Right.
And, not to make a theological error, because one of my teachers, he said one time to the class, he said, look, you have to understand something. You can't go presenting a truth and then just say that you have the absolute. That's all there is to this.
Right.
Because it's not your book, and the only one that has the absolutes to anything is God himself.
Right.
So the whole thing with the thorn in the flesh, we're afraid to carry that thing with us because we know what it could do. And especially when we're moving forward in life, because we're afraid that the thorn in our flesh is going to ruin everything we've worked so hard for.
Yes.
Everything we've pushed towards.
Right.
You've given labor pains, like a woman in birth.
Right.
Yeah. It's just, we start to fear the thorn in our flesh.
Right.
But Paul comes to a place
where
he starts to understand.
Right.
Okay, in 2 Corinthians.
Right.
Where he starts to understand this thorn in my flesh. This is one of the best things that
ever
happened to my spiritual life. Because this thing is turning me to depend upon him.
That's right.
And so when I'm in that place,
right,
that's when I'm my strongest.
There you go.
And so now I'm not afraid of the thorn in the flesh.
Right.
Because now I understand that he's not taking it away.
Right.
Because that's what's getting me to go to him so that I can dwell in that place of strength and power.
Right.
And so when that happens, I'm not fearful.
Right.
Because all of a sudden we start to think, I'm going to just do this and this and this.
Right.
And we tend to become a little bit religious, and we get into these semantics and all kinds of stuff like that.
Right.
To try to deal with these thorns in our flesh that hinder us from moving forward.
Right.
But all of a sudden, God brings you to this place of enlightenment where you start to actually see the mind of God as to why he didn't take that away from you.
There it is.
And so when he doesn't take it away from you, now you're no longer intimidated to take it with you.
Yes. You're not intimidated to take it with you.
That's right. So, it's like now you look at your thorn and say, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
It's going to be with me to the day I leave this earth.
That's it.
but I'm not intimidated anymore because I understand how it works.
Right.
I understand the language of that thorn.
Right.
It's like when I was telling you about understanding the language of fear.
Right.
People, they basically connect their fear to objects.
Right.
But the whole thing about fear, where you really start to defeat your fears, is to identify the language behind the object.
Okay.
So then you start to understand, why is it that you're afraid of this happening or you're afraid of that? It's not until you break down the language and then you start to understand that that language of fear, connected to that particular object, has been breaking you down. And so that's the only language that you've basically been accustomed to with the object.
Wow.
All of a sudden, God sends what? He sends the enlightenment. He sends the word and the revelation into your mind.
Right.
Now you're hearing a different language that you've never heard before.
Right.
And so you use that language up and against the language of fear.
That's good.
So now what happens? Now I start to look at my thorn and say, yeah, I don't like it,
Right.
but I accept it.
Right.
And so there's no shame in that.
Right.
And so that is another thing that we have to deal with as we're moving forward, is that you come to that place where you understand, I'm not shameful now in reference to, yeah, I struggle with this particular thing,
Right.
but I'm not afraid.
Right.
As I start to mature even more and I continue to advance,
Right.
I understand that I'm gaining more strength and more power over this thorn in my flesh.
Right. Wow. It's amazing. You said that it brings light. When you bring light to a particular thing that you're fearful, it brings me back to, remember I told you I was afraid of whales.
Right.
I went back to this, thinking to myself, why am I afraid of whales? So it took me back to the story where my parents took me to a museum.
Okay.
And in the museum, the reason why I was afraid of whales is because in this particular setting within the museum, there was a whale there. And I was a little boy.
Right.
And so when I walked into that area, I saw how enormous it was and how big it was. And so that created an image within me that, you're afraid of whales.
Sure.
I just went last year to the same museum, and I slowly walked into the same place because I knew that the whale was there. But now I was a man. I was not a boy.
Oh, come on.
And so when I walk in, I confronted the whale. I actually saw the whale. And when I saw the whale, I said, wait a minute, the whale is not as big as I thought. Because my perspective had changed.
Right.
When I was a little boy, it was so much bigger than me. But now that I've matured, and when I looked at the whale as a man, there was a light. There was more light in the aspect of saying, you know what, this whale is not as big as I thought it was. Because when I saw it at first, I envisioned it as a boy.
Okay.
But now that I look at it as a man, it's not as large. I can face this thing. I can face this thing.
Well, I think about the women too.
Okay.
Because remember, we got the female.
you got to think. Yes.
And so when I think about the famous women, and I think about biblical women.
Okay.
Okay, and the things that they've had to basically just look at things
Right.
square in the face.
Right.
Like I mentioned in our intro video.
Right.
The woman with the issue of blood.
Right.
Right? 12 years of suffering that. Right?
Yes.
And having to push past things.
Right.
She had to push past the pain that she couldn't communicate with her family anymore.
Right.
She had to push past the pain that science had failed her.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Because she was trying to get healed.
Right.
She had to push past the pain that she didn't look the way she used to look because now the sickness was affecting her looks.
Right.
She had to push past the mental walls.
Wow.
Is there going to be a healing for me? There's this indecisiveness, there's this uncertainty,
Right.
And having to push through that. But yet, it's interesting that as the 12 years continued to run,
Right.
she's moving forward with the 12 years.
Wow.
And she didn't know that God was really pushing her from behind.
Right.
And she's moving forward into the direction
Right.
of the one who was really going to heal her and save her, to the point where now when she saw the multitude,
Right.
she wasn't afraid to push past those things.
There it is. Mm.
And so that's what we have to understand is
Right.
sometimes, it's almost like being in the gymnasium. You
Right.
have to push past
Right.
certain levels and certain stages of dealing with certain things that are in your way.
Right.
Maybe you don't know how to do the exercise. Maybe the things are just too heavy.
Right.
But when you begin to push past that, your body starts to adapt. And that's what we have to understand regarding faith. When you start to push past things, your faith and your spiritual life starts to adapt. And it starts to adapt into the dimensions where your faith starts to become stronger.
Come on.
So that then when you find yourself face to face
Right.
with the very thing you've been waiting for, you realize, you know what? I don't have to do much.
Right.
I am comfortable with just that little touch.
Wow.
Because the little touch is
Right.
just basically her saying, I know that just by me with that engagement and that little touch,
Right.
I know that what's going to happen is that the result will be that my life will now take a leap forward.
Wow. That's good. Well, like what you said, the different stages in her life,
Right.
the different pushing forward in her lives, made her see differently,
Oh, yeah.
and said, you know what? Hey, I've pushed forward with all this. I've done all this before. It's what's one more thing?
What's one more thing?
What's one more thing?
Come on, man.
What's one more thing? If you're at a place where you're saying to yourself, you know what? I've tried everything. I have this vision. I have this idea that God has given me. I have this dream in my heart. What's one more thing?
What's one more thing? Come on, man.
Push forward. You listen, if you're alive,
Right.
you've already pushed forward. If you are where you are right now, you have pushed forward. In whatever family that you've grown up in, whatever wherever you're at this stage in life, if you are alive, you are pushing forward. What's one more thing? You have to say to yourself, I've tried everything.
Right.
And like I said, one of the things that really helped me in this vision
Right.
is I've tried everything, but I needed someone else to try with me.
Okay.
And this moved me forward. And she, like you said, she was done. She was like, I tried this, I tried that. I thought, I'm moving forward. And she said, what's one more thing? What's one more thing in reaching out to Jesus? What's one more thing in reaching out one more time? Because it's, was she losing hope? Was that it for her? Was she saying, this is it for me? She said, you know what? What's one more thing?
That's so rich because, I'm thinking about all the challenges that marriage face today.
Right.
And so how many people just, they subside to these excuses, and they just allow the marriage to just collapse.
Right.
And of course, I'm not going to try to present the ultimate answer.
Right.
Because, things happen between human beings. Our hearts become hard and the relationships just crumble and
Right.
those things happen.
Right.
But when you have two people,
Right.
okay, that in spite of everything, and, they're going through stuff, you're always going to be going through things.
Right. Well, that's what moving forward is. You're going through stuff.
And that's it. You're
Yeah.
going through
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, when the couple looks at each other, and they just say, you know what, in spite of everything, I'm willing to move forward with you.
Right. Oh, come on. Right.
And I think those are the words that basically ignite that hope and reignite the hope into the relationship,
Yes.
into life.
Right.
And once you start making those steps and taking those steps to move forward in that manner, to basically know, I have this person by my side,
Right.
to move forward.
Right.
In my secular job, we have to deal with real big projects. And the thing about it is that in dealing with big projects, what's comforting is that when you're facing that project, is that you have other people that say, I'm moving forward with you on this thing.
There it is.
Okay.
Right.
And so a lot of people don't realize is that the necessity of having somebody or the necessity of having the right inspiration so that you can move forward.
Right.
Because, not tonight, but on another night, I'll get into more of my personal life.
Yes. Yes.
Regarding what I experienced.
Oh, yes.
The viewers that are watching tonight, my whole thing. For those of you that don't know, just a little 2-second thing. I witnessed my 10-year-old son die right in my arms.
Yes.
So, how do you move forward from that?
Yes.
So, the thing about it is that as I try to encourage people,
Yes.
I'm encouraging myself.
Come on.
I'm encouraging myself.
Yes.
If I could tell somebody you can do this,
Yes.
I'm really telling it to myself also.
Come on.
And so, because sometimes you need to see somebody else move forward to basically ignite that fire in you.
Yes. Yes.
You need to see somebody else take those steps.
Yes.
And that's why it brings me to the scriptures with Joshua and Caleb.
Mm.
Those two, they were moving tandem,
Yes.
side by side. They
Yes.
were moving forward.
Yes.
And the relationship that the two of them had
Yes.
in the midst of a people that basically had fallen into unbelief and said, we can't get there. It's
Right.
not going to happen.
Right.
We doubt,
Right.
and all this other stuff.
Right.
But they were of a different spirit.
Right.
And that's what many have to understand, that in the spiritual life, you have to be of a different spirit.
Wow. Yes.
If you're going to move forward, sometimes you might find yourself moving forward with a crowd. But for the most part, you're going to find yourself moving forward alone. And that is the big mountain to have to face.
Right.
That you will have to move forward alone
Mm.
to a degree. Because the other aspect is you're alone, but you're not.
Come on.
And so that's where we have the promises from God. It says, no, I will not leave you nor forsake you.
That's right.
And so I'm moving forward with you.
Right.
And you were talking about pushing. What came to mind is, moving forward. When the woman is bringing the baby into this world, she
Right.
has to push.
Right.
The baby has to push. Once it starts coming down, the birth canal.
Right.
Your whole life from the beginning
It's
is
pushing
a push.
forward, yeah.
It's a pushing forward.
Right.
And that's why, if the people watching tonight are going through a situation where they just feel, I just don't have the strength anymore. This is it. I'm just going to lie in the dust right here. You are not going through anything that anybody else has not been through.
That's right. That's right.
I'm serious. And you can do this. Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
In your personal life.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now might get in trouble here.
Okay.
Go ahead.
In your personal life.
Okay.
Okay. When did you find that moving forward was the hardest?
In my personal life, when did I find it?
I mean, you don't have to give details.
No, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think it was when I was going into college.
Okay.
I was going into college, and I was undecisive of what I was going to do. I was in the music ministry. I actually went for a different major, and I was just not sure of in what direction. And I think that how many people get to that point where you don't know, especially our young people. It's amazing that God has opened the door to be a youth pastor, because you experience what they're experiencing now, and now I'm a high school teacher, and I understand them, where they get to a point where they don't know. So when you don't know, you also don't know who you are.
That's it.
You were talking about, Jacob, you were talking about not knowing who we are. And so when you get to the point where you're questioning yourself, because you're saying to yourself, I'm looking at my weakness. We were talking about weaknesses. Right. I was so focused on my weakness that I could not look at my strengths because I was young.
Right.
And so pushing forward was difficult, because you can't push forward when you don't know where you're going.
That's right.
And so, my parents said, we're going to push you forward, whether you know what you're going to, where you're going to land or not. But we know, at least take the ship. At least buy the ticket.
Right.
At least get on the ship, because you can't move forward looking like you said, Pastor, on the shore side.
Right.
So what made it difficult for me was being able to say, okay, I don't know what ship to get on. That's what I was telling my parents. I don't know in what direction I'm heading. But my parents said, well, get on the ship. Get on the ship, and in this case, it was college. Get to college. And I'm not saying everybody goes in that direction.
Right.
What I'm saying is that you got to get on some ship.
Right.
And it took my parents to guide me, because they could see more. Being able to see more than you, You know, you always need those people around you to say, you know what, take the ship, trust God, and then he will guide you. So when I was there, even being there, I didn't have focus. You know, you had people saying, yeah, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, I'm going to be the other thing. I didn't know till I had a counselor ask me the question, you know, the ultimate question that every youth figures out. What do you want to be? You know, that's the greatest, you know, the greatest question in the world. Because some people, you know, even me, it's what do you want to be? You know, they ask you, what do you want to be? That's a great question.
It is a great question.
You know, because you're saying to yourself, I'm on the ship, I just don't know what I want to be.
Right.
So he started just talking to me and speaking, and in speaking to me, he was able to discern, I think you should do this. And I told him, no, I think I should do this. And he said, you know what? Just in talking to you, I think you should do this. And in that case, it was the music thing. And, you know, you should go to do music. And so he took me on that ship. He directed me to the right deck, you know, because the ship has different levels.
Oh, sure.
And so when he directed me there, I had my struggles there as well. But when it was time, you know, and I was able to, you know, to understand and discern, this is where God did really want me to be. Not so much for the music. It's amazing. Yes, I love music and all that. It was more for what I was going to do with it and how I was going to affect other people. Because a lot of times when we're deciding what to do, we're always thinking of ourselves. And God was always thinking about how you could move other people forward. You know, it's always about, okay, well, me. What can I do? What can I do? And I began to learn that, you know what, Sam, you know, it's not about you. It's about what I can do through you to move people forward.
Right.
You know, and in this, you know, inspire people to move forward. You know, when I'm doing the music thing, or right now we're doing this thing because we're doing it, but we also want to inspire people to move forward in their own lives.
That's right.
And being able to say, you know what, I don't know what ship to get on. You know, I'm at a point where, you know, just get on the ship. Number one, get on the ship. And what I mean by that, you know, pray, find a direction. And even though you don't know the outcome, trust that the ship is going to get there by the waves, that God owns the waves and God owns the waters. And so you say to yourself, Lord, you know, I'm taking this ship. I'm trusting that this is where, and I'm scared. Listen, the fear is always there, like we were talking about. But the challenge is that, number one, being able to take your weaknesses and your strengths and saying, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And then being able to recognize it's not about me.
Right.
It really isn't about me. It's about who else is on the journey with me.
Right.
Who else is on the ship with me? Who else can help me row that boat? And who else? And so when you begin to think like that, because as young people, you always think me, it's I. And some people still like that. It's all about me. But when you begin to realize it's not about you, it's about what God could do in you, first of all, to help other people and to encourage other people and to help other people. Because once you find direction,
right,
and you begin to move forward, you can tell the other people, hey, move forward as well. Because in your moving forward, you're inspiring to move forward other people. And so when they see you move forward, you know, it's true what you said. Sometimes in ourselves, we get anxious because we see people moving forward. And you're like, well, Lord, but look at that person. Look at that person. They're moving forward for many years, you know. And I speak to those that are in your local church or in your local, wherever you are, you know, in that job, wherever you are right now. Understand that point or that place that you are right now is a part of the process of taking you, of building. It's that boat. You're on that ship because there are people that you have to influence on that ship. And when I mean ship, that's your job. Yeah. And when I mean ship, that's your church. When I'm talking about a ship, that's your family, that's your house. Right. You know, that wherever you are. So the challenge is to stop focusing on yourselves, because when we focus on ourselves, we begin to look at our weaknesses. When we focus on ourselves, we begin to look at everything within us, which, you know, makes us so insecure. Because, you know, we're like, oh my God, there's so many things that I don't have. But when we begin to focus on other people and being able to say, you know what, how can I move them forward?
Right.
then your focus moves from myself to other people. And when you place yourself at the service of other people, you feel that you're moving forward. And not by yourself. You feel that this movement, because no longer are you moving the boat by yourself, but all these people are moving forward with you. And that's the idea, to be able to move forward with other people. And so the challenge, again, my challenge at the beginning was, who am I? And then taking the focus off of that and understanding where God had me in what direction I was moving forward to. And then once God opened that door for me, I mean, look at where I am now. I would never believe that we would be doing a program like this, because for me, it was more of, the music and behind the scenes. I was always the behind the scenes kind of guy.
Right.
I never saw myself as the front guy. And the bishop spoke to me, his wife spoke to me and says, God is moving you forward. And I said to myself, well, I love behind the scenes. I have no problems behind the scenes. I love it. Everything that I've done, I love to be behind the scenes. But, she spoke to me and she said, God is telling you to move forward now. And to this is new waters. And to this, it was like a fear thing. Right. Like, oh my God, God is moving me forward to the forefront. Now it's like, tell you, dependence, talk about dependence. This is definitely dependent on God.
Oh, that's where basically you're wrapped.
Yeah.
You got your hands wrapped on the edge of the boat.
Right.
Because you're going into uncharted waters.
Right.
But what gets me is that I noticed that the emotions are the same.
Right.
It's not like there's this new invention for this new emotion that we've never heard before.
I love it. I love it.
Wow, what's that feeling?
Right,
I've never felt that before. Wow, that's a new one. The emotions always will be the same.
Right.
Facing certain things.
Right.
The circumstances will be different.
I love it. Yes, that's good.
The circumstances will be
same
different.
Feeling,
same
different
feeling, different circumstance.
Yeah.
And what gets me is that in the midst of the circumstance, it's the same God. The same God. The same God that gets you past it back there
right.
is the same God that's going to get you past this one
right.
and the next one.
Right.
And you don't have to be religious, because to my friends who are not churchgoers, I love you guys, and that's not a strike against you. I just want you to know that he's moving you forward. Although you may not sense his hand or purpose, he is moving you forward.
That's right. That's right.
And people tonight are probably saying, why are they talking so much of this positive stuff of moving forward?
Right.
And one of the reasons that it's good that we're talking about this is because we're in a time of season that a lot of people get depressed.
Come on. Yes.
And what happens is that this is the time of the year
right.
where a lot of people, unfortunately, tragically, they just basically stop altogether.
Right.
Because they're looking to the new year.
Right.
And in looking at the new year, they don't feel that there's any forward movement taking place.
Well, looking back at what's been.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so what happens is that they're like, well, I did nothing back here.
Right.
And so this now
it's going to be different.
Is basically going to be the same.
Right.
And going back to Jacob,
right.
That's one of the things that inspires me so much. That it says that when he was wrestling
right.
with the angel,
right.
it says that the sun was rising.
Right.
And the angel had to break it down for him right there with the test
right.
and ask him the question. And the thing about it is that in Jacob's mind, there is a probability. I don't want people to say, oh, he said that this was in Jacob's mind. But I know if it was me and the sun is rising in front of me,
right.
and I just came through the mess I just came through,
right.
I would look at that sun and just say, it's no different than the sun that rose up yesterday.
Come on, that's good.
It's the same thing.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that he was being tested because a new sun was rising in his life.
Wow.
And now, all of a sudden, what is taking place? A forward movement. And the forward movement, which got me with Jacob, is he's doing it with a limp.
Yes.
He's doing it with a limp.
Yes.
Which all humans have some type of limp in their hearts.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
In their minds.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you can't face, a new sun.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't leave the old year or the old life behind you, because yes, you can.
Yes.
You can.
Yes.
It's just a matter of listening to the right language.
Mm.
And that's what one of the things that I love about God is that when he calls Abraham forward. leave that place, leave those people,
Right.
leave those groups,
Right.
leave that mentality,
Right.
leave that lifestyle,
Right.
and come in this direction. I
Right.
don't know what direction. It's okay. Just start moving.
Get on the boat.
That's it.
Yeah, get on, get moving.
That's it.
Yeah.
Just start moving.
Yes.
And so, when you see all these people in scripture and all these people in history, inventors,
Right.
People that just did incredible things to advance, the movement of human civilization.
Right.
They didn't know where they were going.
Right. No, they
They didn't know where they were going.
Right.
Everybody likes to, we live in an age where people journal everything, and that's cool. You could journal and stuff like that.
Important. Yes.
That's important and
Yes.
it has its place.
Right.
But let's be honest, you really don't know what's coming next week or next month.
You don't know.
As much as you try to plan,
Right.
it's amazing how time and circumstance will just completely undo that.
Switches things. Yes.
But then, in the middle of it all, because, Paul says in Romans, all things work together for good.
That's right.
The Greek word there, work together, is the Greek word energeon, which is where we get energy.
Right.
And energy is composed of both positive and
And
negative
negative, right.
elements.
Right.
And so how God takes the both positive and negative elements of the circumstances and experiences of the human life,
Right.
your life,
Right.
and makes that thing work together
For good.
for good.
Yes.
And what is good, only God knows what really is good.
Yeah.
Because
That's
when,
good. Good for you.
good for me doesn't necessarily mean that he's saying, yeah, that's really good,
Right, right,
Angel.
right.
And that's why in understanding that, in the beginning, when God said that these things were good and he gave the approval, and then through Jesus Christ, he said, well, only God is good. When you see that, and when God puts his stamp in saying that's good, I would prefer that God puts his stamp of good after everything I've been through,
Right.
all the tears I've shed,
Right.
all the suffering, all the trials, all the tribulations. Now, like you said,
Right.
I no longer look at it as a boy. Now I'm looking at it as a man.
Come on.
That's where I say, I don't know how this is going to work,
Right.
but I know that the power of God, the energeon
Yes,
of God
yes.
is working this thing,
Yes.
and it's going to make it good.
Yes.
Even if the situation lingers for a long time, at least I know that the quality of who I am is going to ultimately come to a place where God says, now that's good.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Well, Pastor,
Well, brother,
I think that our theme of moving forward is perfect for the end of the year, because that's what we want in 2018, being able to move forward. And we hope that this has blessed your heart to understand that God wants you to move forward in wherever you are at this time, in whatever boat, in whatever circumstance that you're at. Understand that God is invested in doing good for you. And so today we want to close with saying that we'll be praying for your moving forward,
for your moving forward.
as you're praying for us, so that we would move forward in this ministry and in this program that we have, and continue to to participate in our discussions.
Yes.
And there's so much more. I can't wait to get to the one where you're telling us a lot more about your life, Pastor.
Oh, sure.
That's going to be really an eye-opener for so many.
Okay.
Any final words before we leave?
Well, I want to direct, myself to and address the viewers. First off, thank you so much. Thank you so much for staying with us tonight and for listening to two guys here that are trying to make it through life and moving forward.
Yes.
Right? And we're doing our best to be husbands and, to be family men and hardworking men, and men who, are doing what they are trying to do to walk this spiritual life and to be better humans. But before I close, I want to say this to everybody watching this. You are moving forward.
Yes.
To the single mothers that are watching this, you are moving forward. I know it's tough, but you're moving forward.
That's right.
To all the fathers that get up so early in the morning, every morning you get up and you get in that car, you're moving forward and you're moving your family forward.
That's right.
To all the young people that feel that their dreams, are just a big cloud right now and you're not sure what they are, you're moving forward because those questions are actually the evidence that something is calling you, and that something is not a thing, it's God himself.
That's right.
And he's pulling you into your destiny.
That's right.
So don't give up. You're moving forward. The most important thing here is that you continue to move forward. That's our discussion for tonight.
Yes.
And I'd leave this word with you. You're going to make it.
That's right. God bless.
God bless you.